Welcome to the show No Instructions, where we meet with founders and interview them about starting and growing their businesses. I'm your host, Chad Ingram, 3-time founder and CEO at Distro. Distro is a platform to help businesses build teams by breaking down borders around the world. Let's go ahead and get started with today's guest and see how they built their business. So welcome to the show No Instructions. Today we have Greg Head from Practical Founders. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah,
live and in person again.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's been a little bit, but for a while I'd see you at events and some things like that. So
on the circuit.
Yeah. So you've been busy. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you've been up to, just super Twitter style, and then we'll kind of get back to that a little bit later. But tell us about today.
Yeah. These days, I am still hyperactive. I have a long journey, 30 plus years in the software business, multiple adventures and all of that. And these days, I help serious SaaS founders all over the world who are building valuable software companies without big funding. I did the VC-funded growth game for more than half of my career and won and lost in that game. But the world is changing software, and the hidden majority of software founders are the ones who didn't raise big VC funding, including here in Utah.
Yeah.
And they're just underserved and doing awesome things. And the odds are better for them to win their game and do it their way. So
it's true. Now, before we get into your story, I actually want to ask you a little bit about this, because there was kind of a turning point. I don't want to say maybe 3 years ago or so, but a few years ago, where you started writing a lot of content about this.
Yeah.
And so it was very intentional. What was the aha moment you had that was like, hey, there's a different way to do this, and it's okay for us to talk about it, and it's okay for you to also not be a VC-backed founder?
Yeah. Well, venture capital's been around a long time, and it usually worked in the old days, and somehow and somehow became the default story. It's what you do, and everybody does it. Yeah. In the meantime, I've been very active with software founders and advising and consulting and mentoring and all over in the last 6-7 years. So talking to 500 founders a year, curating a list of all the software companies in Utah and Phoenix and Dallas and on Greg's list and so forth. So I could see a lot going on. The software game has changed in the last 5 years before COVID run up. It's easier to create software than it ever was. You don't need millions to start a funded software or to start a software company these days and do great things. It's easier to go to market if you know what you're doing. It's harder to go to market if you throw money at it. It's just bad practice. If you get your software company to 1, 3, 5 million ARR, it's worth life-changing wealth to almost every founder. That didn't used to be the case.
Right.
And VC funds have gotten bigger and bigger. Yeah. You've seen it here in Utah. It's the same thing in Silicon Valley and the rest. If they could raise 50 million 10 years ago, then it was 100 million. Now they raise $1 billion. Right. So, which means that the check size got bigger, the risk got bigger, and a VC wants you to pay back $1 billion. Their fund. How big's your fund? That's what you expect me to pay back because it's a blockbuster game. So 50% of VC-funded founders don't win any prize. They get washed out, they get shot, they get squeezed out, and it's an all-or-nothing game. So I know plenty of those founders, and meanwhile, I'm seeing more and more of what I call the practical founders that are growing serious businesses and getting them to 3, 5, 10 million ARR with optionality to keep on running it, to sell a piece of it to private equity or growth equity and keep on going, to sell it to strategics. And they're walking away with prizes with better odds of 25 million, 50 million, 100 million.
Yep.
So like in Phoenix, where I spent 23 years and grew 2 companies to 100 million in revenue in software, I know 50 people who we used to pat on the head and say, sorry you didn't raise VC funding in the old days, because I was in that game, and who have exited for that kind of amount. And meanwhile, most of the VC-funded founders that I know are, this sucks, I didn't make it to my next tier, it's not going to work, they're getting squeezed or pushed or whatever. And that's just, it's not VC funding isn't bad, these aren't bad people, it's just overprescribed.
It's one method.
And misunderstood by some founders.
Absolutely.
So it's a pro game, and it usually doesn't work, but it can work big. So I'm not against Silicon Valley, and I argue pretty fairly about it. So I saw this happening before COVID
Yeah.
That everybody was saying, I need funding. That's what I do. I got an idea. I need funding. And meanwhile, the odds were going down and when you take funding. So I just started waving my hands and saying, if you're really serious, then you should. And by the way, VCs were saying get to $1 million anyway.
Right.
Like it wasn't like,
And here's the thing, from a VC's perspective, when they're at the table and they've written a check, they have a certain expectation for everyone all to go boom or bust, right?
Yeah.
And so as soon as you don't hit the growth rate that they want, they kind of abandon the support a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like left wondering if you're still good. I've had multiple.
And you're not.
Yeah, yeah. And like.
But that's not controversial. Yeah. It's literally in their legal documents.
Right.
That's how we play the game. It's we invest in 20 and we want 2 to be pay back the fund, and the rest we can put up with.
Well, so here's the problem with some of these early founders, because the early stage versus late stage funding. The earlier stage, there's more of them, right? And it's a funnel, and most of these VC backed companies go to die between the A and the B. So raising a pre-seed and seed is significantly easier than like a B, C, and D. And so the problem is some of these founders will raise like $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, and they're generating a couple million.
Drug. Yeah,
totally. And then they get to this point. Now they have a business with employees. They have revenue. They have customers that may be happy.
Yeah.
And then once they feel like they've had a bad board meeting or didn't quite grow as fast as possible, now they're feeling the sentiment from the investors that they're failing.
Right.
And they're actually not. They have a business that is viable.
Well, the difference is, and again, VCs don't argue with me about this because I'm talking about it on LinkedIn. People can find me on LinkedIn and see my posts, and then go to my practicalfounders.com and see 300 posts that I've had in the last 5 years. They don't argue with me about it. It's just not something they say out loud to people.
Yeah.
So VC scale means you take $1 million and you need to grow at 300% to keep growing fast enough to take another chunk of money, to grow at 200%, to take another chunk of money to get at 100%. So you can get towards $100 million in revenue and sell for $1 billion. That's actually how the math of a fund works. That's how a VC makes money. So if you grow at 50% or 20% and it's kind of slow, they'd rather not have you around.
They're not gonna spend time with you.
And it's kind of a loss in their world, and they're nice about it. They're not evil and so forth, but it's just a bad equation. So don't be surprised by that, because that's their math. Like founders should know that. And sometimes that works, but it's by far the exception. 50% of VC funded founders don't make anything when they take, it's an all or nothing, and then pop it goes. Like I know plenty of founders who've made $100 million selling the company that they created, grew for 10 years, and did a nice strategic exit for it. Very few VC funding founders ever have made $100 million net.
Yeah, it's true.
When you IPO your company, which used to happen in the old days, IPOs don't happen that much anymore.
Yeah.
The average VC funded founder owns like 15% of the company.
Yeah, or single digits.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know how many billion-dollar exits there have been in software ever?
I actually don't know. How many?
Like less than 100.
Wow.
So you're saying I want to be one of the 100 if you're gobbling up the funding and so forth. So it's possible. It's just not common.
It's not likely.
And it's really great to go create a software company, solve problems, do it in your personality and your style, not in somebody else's world, and zig when the world is zagging, and do it at your pace, which is really important, and decide if you want to sell it or if you don't. Solve your customers' problem and have great employees and build a great business. By the way, a 20% grower, which is a shame to VCs, right? Lifestyle business or whatever they say. You do that for 15 years and it's freaking huge.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And you own most of it.
Right. So that's a very practical way to do it. I think that's awesome too. And those are the ones I help in the world, and they maintain their optionality so they can do it in a variety of ways. There's fewer templates.
Let's talk about you now.
All right.
Okay. Where are you from?
I'm from the Chicago area. I grew up in the Chicago area.
Okay.
So I'm a Midwesterner.
Yeah.
From
That's
the early
cool.
days.
Where does your story start then? I think when somebody says, I want to get to know Greg, like, where do you start?
Well, I'm an older guy, so with all this energy still, but people usually know I go way back. That's the way back machine.
Old. You're not that old.
Yeah. Well, I started in the software business in 1987, so people can do the math.
Born that year.
Yes, right. Okay, so you just add a certain amount to that, and that's where we are. No, I wasn't one of the. I've co-founded businesses that have grown fast and gone public and so forth, but I'm not the. There was me, the founder moment, and I've been part of.
You're an early team member.
Yeah, and starting at the kitchen table with one company in the 90s that grew fast and was public, and I was one of the executive leaders of 2 other ventures that grew big, and so I was that kind of guy. But I wasn't like the Mr. Entrepreneur kid in high school. My dad was an ad guy in Chicago. Okay. Took the train downtown and did ad work, and we lived in a little brick house and had 1 station wagon and 4 kids and nothing fancy. That parents were Depression era folks, so it was really frugal and all that. And my mom was a reference librarian. She ran the library at our elementary school and got a master's and kept going. So we were a weird group that my dad would explain what was going on behind the commercial. Why they chose that and what he should have said instead of that. And he knew people who made these commercials and things like that. And we were bringing out encyclopedias at the dinner table when there's no such thing as an unanswerable question with the reference librarian. So
I mean, you grew later to run marketing programs for really big companies. I mean, did you feel any influence there in your career about what you saw from your dad?
Yeah. So my weird thing is, we had a pretty expansive knowledge. We were always consuming knowledge and all that, and we knew it was made up. Most people didn't know that what's that commercial and behind that building in the city and the whatever is people making it up. My dad was one of the guys making it up, so I had that at an early age, and I started out in the software business when I came back from the University of Iowa with an honors degree, and this was the 80s, so it wasn't like rocket science. PCs weren't really cool, and I was at an odd time in the economy.
PCs were just starting.
Starting. So they were not cool. They were where the geeks did it.
Did Apple create the kind of first consumer computer yet at that point?
Well, there was the Commodore 64 and all those kind of things. So the hobbyists did those things and played around with it, and everybody has a story like that. I didn't have one of those, and even in college, we didn't have PCs. The PC had started in the 80s, and 1984 was when Mac came. So the cool kids who had a lot of money had a little Mac, but it wasn't very functional.
What did you study in Iowa?
Economics was my love, and the microeconomics there, and Spanish and business, and I wandered around. I didn't know what I wanted, so I was kind of zigging when everybody was zagging. So
did your parents did they care or give you any advice on or were you just kind of figuring it out yourself?
I just had to figure out myself. And that's actually what led me into entrepreneurship is I tried to put on a suit, came back to Chicago and looked for a job, and this old-time rigmarole of working in a big company, and it just didn't fit me at all. And a buddy of mine said, hey, work with me at the software retail store while you're looking for a real job.
Wait, my best friend. A software retail store.
Yes.
Tell us what that is.
Yes, I know. So if you this is
pre-cloud.
No, that's right. The software business of the 90s, which was the first phase of it.
Right.
You buy a PC and you go to the store and you get a box, and the software has disks in it and a manual, and you put the disks in your computer and you load the software on your computer and all that stuff. So it's funny when people under 30 give me a blank stare like, I don't understand what you're talking about.
Right.
But I'll give you a little gift here, Chad. That store was called Egghead Software.
Really?
Yes. And they sold half of the software in the country, and it was one of the fastest growing companies at the time, in the late 80s, because people were thinking this was darn cool. I got a computer, and I'm buying boxed apps and spreadsheets and database and word processors and games for the kids and little learning stuff. It was the moment the software business started, I was wearing a suit, working 14 hours a day, selling software. How may I help you? And it was a very high-touch kind of thing. I was Greg Head from Egghead. Literally a name tag on, like the Utah
wild.
name tag. I had a Greg Head from Egghead, and people would stare at it and go, what is going on here? So I had more fun. I just fell in love with it. and managed retail stores and did really well with that. And then I was in front of a wall of software, and I fell in love with one of the software packages that came out in a gray box. It was very nondescript. The first version, it was software for salespeople called ACT, A-C-T exclamation point.
Where were they based out of?
I'm based out of Dallas. So the 3 or 4 employees, they would kind of visit me because I was selling the crap out of this software and talk to them and everything. It was very entrepreneurial at that time. It was the frontier. Literally.
I mean, you're talking, a startup selling a disc at a retail store, right? That's how they were going to market.
Yeah.
And there was
no alternative to that.
Wow.
That's how you bought software. And I guess people could call you up and you could send them the box,
sure,
right, and that kind of thing. But this was the game, and it was off to the races. So, there was a little software industry that was happening, and it was just massively fun. And the early '90s was about, oh my God, this stuff is magic, is really cool, and it wasn't about money, and it wasn't about funding, and it wasn't like we were just. All the smart misfit kids that didn't know what they wanted to do fell in love with this stuff, and we were just all in, going crazy with it. I joined that little company as the.
So how did that happen? So they talk to you inevitably in the store. You're selling a bunch of their stuff, and they say, "Hey, do you?" I
call them up and I said, "Hey, I want to join you." And they, it's hard to recruit somebody into a crazy startup in the early days.
Especially then.
No, but just, this is when the word. Home office was kind of like happening. Startup wasn't even a word. It was entrepreneur, and they were always your weird uncle.
Yeah.
Right? That didn't have a corporate guy. Yeah, right. Yeah. And it was, I'm sorry, he's an entrepreneur and all that stuff. Now it's totally cool.
Right.
Literally, for the first 10 years of my career, people would say, when are you going to get a real job? This software thing, I don't think it's a real thing. Selling software for salespeople. Salespeople didn't use a computer. Salespeople who sold computers didn't use computers. They used paper, right? And business cards and all that stuff. So I just fell in love with all of this stuff. And I kind of like to go where there's the open space and not play somebody else's game. That was really my game.
What was exciting about it? Like when you look at this little company and these few people building it, like what about that intrigued you? Well,
I love the sales experience. And the biggest thing is people were saying, is this real? Are people going to use computers? Most people at offices didn't have a computer on their desk, and that was Bill Gates' big vision, a computer on everybody's desk and all that. Yeah. But the people who were using it and consuming it, it was magic. The first 10 people I ever sold ACT to, I said, what do you do? And this, oh, you should try this, and let me show you around, and then you buy it for $300 and go home on it. They come back in 3 weeks and say, this software has changed my life. It used to be all these papers and files, and now I'm starting to organize it. And it's just like leverage and magic and excitement, and it was a cosmic thing. It was happening over here in the corner. But
think about that perspective, though. Like, I think that a lot of people who weren't in that particular time frame wouldn't understand that. Yeah. Like, you were selling, like, it's like the invention of the wheel at the time almost, right?
Yeah, kind
of. Something that was totally new. It would seem like magic to them.
Right. And it was just amazing, and it was true. So for those people that it was a perfect fit for, imagine running a business without spreadsheets. My dad used to manually update stuff in spreadsheets. Imagine. So what spreadsheets were to finance people and business people, like the beginning of ACT and contact management, which we created that term and took it to the world. It was the first software that salespeople used on a popular basis.
What was your first job there?
I was.
What were you in charge of?
No, I was. I came out of Egghead, and I say I will go visit 150 Egghead stores, and I was the evangelist. My friends up here in Utah, I say that was my first mission. I did two tours of duty myself. I visited all the Egghead stores, and I said, hey, I was Greg Ed from Egghead and ACT, and I did an upside-down demo with my 15-pound laptop at the time, and basically explained what this was. This is positioning. You got a wall of software and a nondescript box. What is this thing, and why is it magic? So I was doing marketing. That wasn't really sales per se. It was marketing before hand-to-hand marketing. you would say, right? Repeating the same
story. Did you
story.
have to move to Texas?
I did eventually, but I literally did it from Chicago, and then it took so long to make the new version of software. I just came down to their help, just like, write the manuals.
So you get like an update once a year.
Yeah, that was the thing. And then you literally had to order the upgrade for $99, and then we'd send you a box with disks that would update your software. So that was the business model back then: buy it once, get an upgrade once in a while, and do all that stuff. And it was still pretty exciting. I mean, like, the fundamentals haven't changed. People have a problem. They become aware of something. They see a wall of opportunities. One stands out. Crossing the chasm still exists. And, the product adoption lifecycle still exists. The chasm is smaller. People,
right.
That was, even Jeff would say that now. But the fundamentals of those things haven't changed. Tactically, how you get your software and what magic is, was just dosing on what happened at Apple's WWDC conference with, their ChatGPT integration, right? Just another flavor of, it's magic.
Right.
And we do this thing really well for these people. And so that's my good fortune in the world, is my crazy energy and hard work, and then kind of super savvy about these things. I was at the time when the software business was starting, and it hasn't stopped.
Yeah, your brain hasn't stopped. You've been doing this whole thing.
But the market is going, I've been doing it since 1987. So at this pace, which is fun.
So
imagine that.
It's in the 90s, right? How long have you been, how long were you at this company?
Well, I moved to Dallas, and we grew this little software company to a top 20 software product of the time. So there was WordPerfect.
Yep.
Just down the road
right here in Utah.
Right? Just literally in Orem, across the way. And Novell and a few other things here. So there was like 100 real business software apps that people use, probably 1,000 that were out there, but 100 real, and 20 big ones, and Act was one of the big ones. We grew it to have 4 million users. So we did this thing where people say, why would I use a computer? And then 4 years later, after endless trade shows and visiting and doing this.
It was just that period of time, too. In 4 years.
Right.
Explosive.
4 million users. So the beginning was, what is this? Why would I use a computer? I don't get it. I need to learn to type, salespeople would say. Yeah. And 4 years later, I get on a plane in Las Vegas from the big trade show. Yeah. We just sold 1,000 copies to individuals there. And I would walk down the plane with my Act shirt on, and people would high-five me and show me Act on their laptops.
Wow.
Like one of those. So that was product market fit, right? It was savvy stuff. It was distribution. It was a whole organism. It was just a different time. I've done it in the box time, the client-server time, the SaaS time. But the same principles apply, that in our brains, technology.
What did you do while you were there, essentially?
I was sales, and then I became product manager.
Okay.
So I was basically right in the middle of everything. Yep. That's my thing, is I see the whole thing from the segmentation of a customer to the messaging on the box. I've written 12 boxes, and the distribution and the math and the features and designing dialog boxes and the spreadsheets. And,
I'm finding a trend today of entrepreneurs and leaders who at tech companies who came out of a product management role early
it makes sense.
on.
Yeah, you see everything, and in big companies that sell bleach or whatever, the product manager is the business leader of that business. They're making all the decisions there. So I was pretty close to that. So I was one of 50 product managers in all of software because there were just not that many companies that were big yet. Yeah. And it's the same principles as today. We have different names for all of these things. Right. And we did most of it face-to-face back then, and now we do it.
Did you feel pretty energized the whole time, or did it feel, did you feel sluggish and kind of wanting to do your
It was brutal, like any journey was, and all these startup things, but we didn't know. Like, it was an adventure. Yeah. And it was fun. Yeah. And the world was turning on to us, literally. Like, my neighbors, finally, they would ask, what do I do? And they'd be all confused and then kind of apologetic. And then our company went public, and they went, oh, is that your thing? So it kind of got cool over time.
Right.
So
you got the T-shirt. Right.
Now it's over cool. Like, oh, I'm going to do a startup.
Have a T-shirt?
Yeah.
I hope you still have an app T-shirt. Oh, that's cool.
My son actually bought me an Egghead Software T-shirt, literally a vintage T-shirt. And I have the Egghead Software T-shirt. So I've been playing this game in the middle of it. I've been at the leadership table of software companies since 1993.
So you left. The company went public, I presume.
No, but so ACT, we sold that to Symantec in '93. Right. The Pat Sullivan and the owners did. I was product manager. And literally when I was on my honeymoon, so I came back with my new wife, and he said, we sold the company. I'm going, but I'm not going. So here you go, Greg. It used to be Pat at the decision. Then it became Greg at the decision in about 24 hours. Wow. They really wanted me. So that was a great opportunity. Ripped my new wife right out of Texas. Hey, honey, we're going to Silicon Valley. And,
really?
That was Symantec right next door to Apple. And I was product manager for ACT for 2.5 years and kept it growing. So
what did your wife think? This whole thing happening, career change. Well, was she into it? Did she like the change?
She was up for it. And so we were late 20s when we got married. And so we both knew what we wanted and have kids. And, that's going to work. And, okay, plan A is instantly executed. Yeah, so she left her job, and we were out there. A year later, we had a kid.
How many kids do you have today?
I have 2 kids. So
2 kids?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And they both live in California now.
Oh, so,
and I live back in Dallas. So
are they working in tech or no?
One is. My son is an engineer working in the Bay Area in tech.
Good for him.
Yeah, right. So that was a thing, and I just love Silicon Valley. All of a sudden,
Especially
everybody's these
90s.
Misfits, who are doing these crazy things and working all day and all night and turning on the world. It was, literally next door to Apple.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. So it wasn't a great time for Apple. It was in between Steve Jobs.
It was a weird time.
Yeah, it was a weird time. But Silicon Valley was Silicon Valley and was still the homeland of big tech and all that. So I did 3 years at Symantec. So I did that thing early in my career where you sell a company in and you rewire it inside a big company and you see what works better in a big company and what works worse in a big company. And do you like the big thing or the small thing? And I like the 0 to 1 to 10.
So that was clear to you.
Oh, yeah.
That you like the early stage.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Why is that?
I like scaling things. So I'm not an inventor. Like, here's 26 ideas and whatever. I like ideas that work and installing them into the universe. And there's a role for that. That's a growth kind of person in the universe. So between inventors and bureaucrats, there's the growth people that take things up. Mm-hmm. And it's its own crazy game. And there's phases of the game as you grow companies from 3 people to 30 people to 300 people and all that kind of thing. So I just love that. I don't like people telling me what to do, and I like making the rules and setting the frame. That I don't mind if there's a framework if I get to set up the framework.
Yeah, there you go.
That's kind of the deal. So yeah, that's really why.
It's funny you say that because you go on to be an executive at these companies. But do you feel like there's definitely some entrepreneur in you, and even today, right? Yeah. Like you have built your own business as well.
Yeah, of course.
And like, did you feel that as an executive that you had enough autonomy to feel as if you're an entrepreneur or get that sentiment?
Well, we didn't really have that, and it wasn't like there was one person was an entrepreneur and everybody else did stuff. Like, I don't know, wasn't that division of labor. We were all making stuff up. Like the new EOS framework, the entrepreneurial operating system, distinguishes between visionaries who get at the whiteboard and then they leave and have other people do it or something like that. And then the execution. Like,
black and white.
Everybody had to do both. You had to make it up. And 90% of it is just the reality of pushing something into the universe. So
so you go to Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
How long are you there? How many years?
I'm there 3 years. I'm there long enough to learn a whole ton.
Yeah.
And know that I love this game and see what's really happening. And Netscape went public there, which was a shot heard around the world. And I know I went to Silicon Valley as Midwesterner saying I don't really know. I'm just a humble little guy. I've only shipped 12 versions of this software and 4 million users and everything. And I got there and went, they're not smarter than everybody else. They're just play the game hard. And I'm like, I'm going to play the game hard. So with the founder of ACT, myself and 2 other people, we started SalesLogix in '96 to make software for sales teams, which was just starting to happen. This is the precursor to CRM. The moments VPs of sales were saying, maybe we should. Yeah, we got Act users over here. They're killing it. Maybe we should get software for everybody and get laptops and have everybody type and roll it into one database and have deals. That normal stuff was just starting to happen. And it was crawling through, and you could see it kind of happen. And we started SalesLogix, and we moved to Phoenix to start that.
He approaches you, the founder of Act.
We approached each other. I'm trying to build this next generation up-level thing up at Symantec, and it won't fit. It won't work unless it's in a yellow box, and they won't get it.
So what does
and
he
he's
say?
like, I'm hearing the same thing. Let's do something together.
That's cool. So you leave San Francisco.
Yeah.
Did it just make more sense to be in Arizona?
He was already in Arizona, and
there you go.
It was kind of a compromise. It wasn't quite going back to Texas, so we were stepping back.
How did you think about funding? Like, how are you going to get started?
Well, we did fund it to start it, and that was a different time, but we were literally doing those Silicon Valley, Palo Alto, Il Fornaio, Sand Hill Road, a little bit of funding. The founder of Act, made man already in the mid-'90s, and there weren't too many of them. And, we raised $3 million to start it.
Which is quite a bit back then.
At the kitchen table, saying, are we going to do this? Yes, we'll do it. And then we went and raised $3 million. And they say, I wonder if Act is going to respond. And they say, then Pat would have the joke you know who was leading that over there? He just left. Oh, really? Yeah, it's me. This guy, they're like, oh my God, this is the guys that created Act. We wanted to be in. So, and we had milestones, $3 million to take a year to build the product. We had 40 people working on the product.
Wow.
That's why you needed VC funding back in the day.
Right. I mean, you could do an MVP with one or two or three people.
Right. Yeah. All the vertical CRMs, you can get started in 3 months for less than $250,000 with more functionality and so forth. So we built it. We raised another $7 million to go to market, and we built a VAR channel. So we made a mid-market CRM with Windows laptops.
And where was your focus in this particular business?
I was the VP of marketing to lead that.
So you were leading Outgrowth.
Yes. And we didn't call it growth. We called it marketing back then. And, and we became a big name in the industry. And, I leveraged Pat's, reputation as the founder of Act.
Yep.
And we became one of the big guys. And in those days, by the way, VC funding and the size of your booth at the trade show was a direct indicator of who was going to win this game. Now VC funding is not a direct indicator of who's going to win in the long run, but it was back then. And then I think we raised maybe one more round, but we grew from 1 million to 3 million to 7 million to 15 million to, we kept on doubling and went public so here's the story. Late 95, we decided we're going to do this. We raised money in 96, $3 million. I moved to Phoenix. Felicia and I moved there. We build a product, ship it the next year, ...
This is a booming time in tech. Tech's on a tear.
Yeah, right. People are saying, I guess computers work. Yeah, okay, here we go. The wave happens. But we went from kitchen table to public company with 500 employees, and we had acquired Act back from Symantec to pair with SalesLogix. It's mid-market big brother in 4.5 years.
Wow.
And remember, I was selling Act as Greg Head from Egghead on the shelf. And 12 years later, I was general manager and president, basically the CEO of Act.
Wow.
With 200, we rebuilt Act. Act had floated down to about 20 million in revenue. We revived it, Back to the Future, revived it, and took it up to 50 million. I had 250 global employees, VPs of everything and all that. It was a crazy time. The .com bust and building it, and wasn't quite web software, wasn't quite there. Salesforce had gotten early on that wave, but most were.
So did you guys take that business public?
We took SalesLogix public.
Okay.
Right.
So SalesLogix goes public. It's a successful venture. Very quick again.
Yeah.
You've probably, you were lucky enough to see 2 very successful outcomes in a very short amount of time. Yeah. Arguably a very short amount. I mean, especially back then. That probably was a very short amount of time. Yeah. And then shortly after that, the .com boom.
Yeah.
What happened?
It busted. So,
and where were you during that?
I was running Act and responsible for that. And Act was actually a steady growing business, but all the fake businesses compressed and went away. Most people don't know this. The bust happened after COVID and there's less funding and so forth. But the .com bust 50% of tech ventures on NASDAQ were gone in a year.
Well, there was no revenue whatsoever. There was some,
and it's not recurring revenue. The
sure.
safety valve of flywheel, reliable, revenue is just a magic thing. So the SaaS business model is just awesome compared to the old days. So we kept the thing going. We sold the company to Sage, which has accounting software for small businesses and mid-market. And there was the front office, back office story. They just it was a very different business. And I spent a couple years there running ACT. And then they tried to moosh it all together, and all the entrepreneurs scattered to the winds. They tried to corporatize everything and central marketing and like the private equities would do these days. And it's just no fun. So I left and started helping all my founder friends in Phoenix, and that's how I ended up helping Clayt over there at Infusionsoft.
About that. So I think a lot of people who know you today would know that you were at Infusionsoft for a while.
Right. So this is funny. I'm old enough that most people know me by either my Practical Founders Thing and Nothing Else or Infusionsoft.
Yeah, it's been a bit. I mean, how long ago did you leave Infusionsoft? Like 7 years, maybe?
8 years ago.
8 years. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah. So Infusionsoft was a Phoenix software company, and literally yet another version of CRM. Mm-hmm. So CRM with marketing and automation together, which marketing was over here and CRM was over here for all these years. But for small businesses, they wanted CRM and marketing and automation together. So lead form all the way through emails to orders and everything else in one system for small businesses. And that had grown up, bootstrapped to $3 million in ARR before raising a little funding from up here. They'd grown to about $10 million in revenue, or just over 10, and we're kind of struggling, with growth challenges. It was just kind of a high energy business, and then we know this. Getting to $1 million is about high energy and pushing and trying it. Yeah, running around. ADD.
I tell founders, like, you can sell a shitty product to $1 million easily.
And you should,
right?
to find where the real people are that really want this.
So it doesn't mean you fully have product market fit yet.
No, that's correct. You discover product market fit through there, and it's usually a small subset. So VCs know this, and experienced entrepreneurs. Usually if you get to $1 million, there's 30% of the people you should have sold to that are really happy that the economics work. You can buy them for a right way, they stay, and all that kind of stuff. And you start to wean off of that and, get to product market fit 2.0 and 3.0 and so forth. But Infusionsoft was struggling with the internal growth challenges and external marketing positioning, and they had a lot of loyal customers, but a lot of pissed off customers that were oversold, and was pretty confusing. So, and we're just kind of a little startup that grew up and didn't put internal systems or maturity in place. So I joined Clayt as the chief marketing officer, helped reposition the company with everybody, Scott and Clayt and everybody there. It's not like marketing's connected to everything, product and pricing and culture and the market and everything. So it's not just something you go do when you're doing it. So you have to get leads and grow the business and reposition the company and tell the story for the market. And we grew from 10 or 15 million to 100 million in 5 years. Yeah. So that was second $100 million software company in Phoenix, and it's still going. It's been rebranded as Keep, and love the guys, but it's a reality story. If you don't keep growing, then
going back to the VC
it's kind of a challenge. They haven't raised since then, and it just gets difficult over there. So
definitely.
And Keep is a great product for that kind of business. Yeah. So
I think they've done a lot of product updates in the last 3 or 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Pivoting it.
Yeah.
So what would you say you learned in your time at Infusionsoft versus maybe, the growth mode at SalesLogix, or what was a little bit different, would you say, maybe either for good or bad?
Well, I think in a SaaS business where you're selling and changing people's habits in the real world, right, to get value out there, that you can push a business faster than the market is willing to consume it. Yeah. And if you don't fix your product to maximize what value that customers get out of it and tell their friends, all that useful, virtuous, organic, pull and word of mouth and so forth, if you don't fix your product and you push too hard, it's whatever you put $100 million of VC funding on, it's going to wash right through. So pace is really important. And that efficiency of, we could raise money right now, but why don't we take a step back and fix the product for the market that just moved over one notch and needs an easier product, not the early market geeks.
Right.
And they could have gotten to the same growth rate without the venture funding.
Yeah, or spending as much.
Right. And I'm not saying that was a bad decision. I was part of that decision, and part of the raise and part of the execution and all that kind of thing. But looking back, I can see that now that, we should have said, this is the trap that VCs get. If you're so good, how come you're not growing faster? And we need you to grow like this. So that's what our math is. Yeah. And then you fall for that trap, and then
it is a trap because as a founder, you think you're winning, right? We did the same thing at Jump. As soon as sales started taking off, it was all sales, and my head, or my focus sort of came off of product and went to sales, right? But it should have been sales enablement through the product and marketing.
Yeah, or a disciplined sell to the right people now and get really, really good at that. You have to sell. I'm not against selling. But let's align, but you want to sell to people who in 2 years are going to say, thank you very much. I will buy more. I'll tell my friends. Yeah. Otherwise, it kind of washes through. So the SaaS model teaches you to not get too far ahead of yourself. You can, right? It shows you immediately.
Wagging the dog.
Right. And it's a great model with practical founders who can do it at the pace, meaning they will take a year or two to fix it. The market isn't ready. Our product isn't ready. Our first shot wasn't the right thing. We're going to come at it in a different way. We're going to try some experiments here.
Yeah.
We're just going to hold for a minute and then find it. Shopify did this to get started. Where is it? What is it? Okay, now it's the big bet. So venture funding is rocket fuel. And you don't always have a rocket, at least on the first try. It's just a messy first thing. It's a Volkswagen, so it's going to explode with rocket fuel. So timing all of that stuff, venture funding can work. It's we were just a notch behind HubSpot, and it worked for them.
Right.
Their product evolved massively, literally every year. So that's one of the differences. So
they were product led, arguably, right?
Yeah.
Like very product led.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. What did you see, or what did you learn about yourself being a repeat, SaaS executive at that point in your career versus, earlier on?
Well, Clayt had to, pull me in. I was
Clayt was the CEO.
Yeah, Clayt is the CEO and of Infusionsoft, because if you grow companies like I have and did that journey, it sounds really exciting, but I got scars.
Yeah.
And do I want to sign up for another one of these? It's like climbing Everest. It's a real, people die.
And the problem is that because you've done it before,
I know.
Sometimes it's better for you to
know. I'm winking in the VC meetings when they say something, and I'm like, yeah, I know. Right, I know. So, but it was exciting. I love the team. I still am great friends with all the people, and Infusionsoft Keep is a great product and everything. But, this was 8 years ago. We got it to 100 million. My magic trick stopped working. Mm-hmm. My growth magic tricks. Now the, different kind of thing needs to come in. And I started helping people. So I didn't really want to run a big team anymore. I wanted to help the serious founders in kind of the new way that was evolving in SaaS, like the deep way, not the superficial way. And
are you referring to during Infusionsoft?
No, just afterwards there. Like what, I get to ask, I could do anything I want after all these years. And so I get to ask the question, what do I love to do? What am I unusually, gifted at? Usually they're the same thing. What is valued by other people? And who do I care about? Who do I want to serve? And I love hanging out with the founders. I'm not normal anymore. I can't hang around with corporate people that just are doing corporate things.
This was going to be a question I had. Yeah. It's because you very well could. I mean, you left Infusionsoft after they already hit that really difficult mark of 100 million in annual recurring revenue. Could have easily gone and joined some other large company and done some similar things. Why go through the effort of building your own business as opposed to going and taking the W-2?
Well, I don't need the W-2. I don't want somebody else telling me what to do. Usually in the marketing game or whatever, we raised a Series B on crazy goals, and now we just need you to come in and hit the goals that we can't even hit. It's a setup usually.
For the executive.
Unless I'm driving the train, these days it's the entrepreneurial thing. Unless I'm driving the train, I don't want to be on it. Yeah. And with Clade, I got a hand on the steering wheel of Infusionsoft driving that train. And that was fun.
A fun time, too.
Yeah, it was a fun time. It was very exciting.
High growth.
Yeah, great people and great culture and all that kind of thing. So what I like doing is deep work with serious founders. And the funding game that practical founders don't really deal with in the same way. Bootstrappers and lightly funded, but not institutionally funded. They didn't take the big pill.
Right.
Like in my peer groups with 40 founders, we don't really talk about funding. I'm running out of money, and I got to raise, and I'm going to pay best back, and my investor says this. That's the conversation in VC-funded startups. It's not the conversation. We're talking about culture. I mean, hard stuff, and
real businesses.
Real businesses. Yeah. Product. Should I go this way? Should I hire this VP of sales? Should I fire this VP of sales? Do I need a VP of sales? At all those early stages. I'm kind of a 0 to 10 million guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and there's great acquisitions in that range. Like they're great outcomes for a cap table that is very simple.
Oh, yeah. And literally I could go buy a software company too. So I don't need to do that. So I like to talk to people all over the world and be not the board member, the investor that they kind of report to. I like to be the consultant, therapist, trusted friend. Advisor. That's why the peer groups exist, for them, to widen out their network of people. But, bootstrapped and lightly funded founders don't have people they could talk to about my head's exploding because this is happening in the business, or what should I do about this, and so forth. So if you raise VC funding, your VC is not really a therapist. They're kind of your boss, You kind of report to them in some ways.
Well, okay.
And they can help you.
Sure, they could be helpful. VCs are not all bad.
Yeah,
right? It's one medium, and the trade-offs you're signing up for if you do that. Same thing with being a practical founder, I think. There's a lot of less stressful trade-offs. There are other types of stressful things that come up with it, right? You can't just go solve it by saying, we'll just burn more this month, and then go ahead, know. And I've had both types founders in here, and the conversations are very different. Yeah. The stresses are very different. And you can hear from talking to VC-backed founders, which I have been myself. And
me too.
There's this underlying thing and sentiment in your voice that you're solving for what the VC wants for you. Now, you have a fiduciary to the people on your cap table and the people you take money from, right? Yeah. But I think that repeat founders who even raise capital, they view it differently as well. Yeah. They just go and operate, right? Like if they, a repeat founder who does raise, venture, I think they have they're less afraid of the VCs in a way. Yeah. They just go and operate.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of VCs. Like in our, creating SalesLogix with funding, the VCs would say, I think you should grow this. And we'd say, we're going to go faster. Yeah, right. Yeah, but as long as you know what the game is that you're playing, and you create an agreement that says, you give me your money and we have these terms and these expectations, and are we in alignment? Yes, we're in alignment. Let's go. There's a place for that. But there's a lot of overprescription and misunderstanding in the modern VC game. But there's, a lot of people, I'm not against it, as long as people are clear about what the game is and grow. The second-time founders who raise again are clear that we've got a rocket, and we're going to add rocket fuel, and we're going to do it in these stages. And they probably get yanked around less by VCs, or even the perception, like what the VC says, it must be true.
Exactly. It's more that early
it's partnership, and that's a game, all that. In the long run, it's just fuel, it's money, right? And oversight, which can be useful, right? All that board stuff and everything. But there's only it's literally just the VC funding game where you're raising 5 million Series A to 20, and you keep on going is good for about 10% of software companies who want to bet that much. Yeah. literally 20% of all
some
software
require
companies.
it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of fintech.
Or modern AI. That's a great race. The B2B SaaS game right now is actually not really aligned for the most part with venture funding, at least to get up and running. So you should be making, if you get your company to 1, 3, or 5 million in ARR and you see there's a bigger opportunity, you kind of have the optionality to get the kind of funding you want, to get to the level you want. And, you have to think through that game so you don't risk it all. But it's totally possible, and that's very practical.
But here, what's not practical, looking at it in this sense is like you have early stage founders that are giving up 50% after option pools, 50% of their company in the first 2 small rounds, right? So you're approaching a Series A with, half the company under control of the founders, and then you get into a, Series A, Series B, and it's just kind of a landslide at that point.
Well, that's the story they say, a bigger pie. Right, you get a smaller slice of a bigger pie. Usually doesn't turn out to be a bigger pie. That's the problem.
That's the argument. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the bigger deal is if you don't make it to the next growth milestone to get to the next round of funding, you're kind of out.
Yeah,
you're kind of hobbled and you're dead. So the odds are way better for serious founders to grow without venture funding these days, to create a founder scale exit, 25 to 150 million. Which in any neighborhood is off the charts. You're worth more than most of the VCs who patted you on the head and so forth. Yep. So, and that's really exciting. And they know those guys are out there. They know for those founders who get to 5 million or 10 million ARR that
but here's the
everybody's
thing,
knocking on their doors.
The practical
they don't
founders,
need your funding.
Yeah, exactly. The practical founders, you don't even hear from them as much either because there's usually not as big of a
the hidden
press
majority.
Release. Right, exactly. Yeah. It is the hidden majority because there's not a natural sequence of press releases of these,
the clapping for funding and the big exit and the IPO.
And so by the time they get to an exit, there might be a press release, but, most of those strategics, they don't even want to disclose the number, right?
There's more money being made by founders who've grown without VC funding than by the founders who've grown with VC funding. You just don't see it. It's a hidden majority out there. On the Practical Founders podcast, I've interviewed almost 100 now.
You're at 100?
Yeah.
Wow.
That founders who've exited or companies, whether they have an exit. Another way to do it is not exit. How about grow it? This is more fun. What if you designed your business with the customers and the business model and your team and your partnerships and the market leadership, that it was the most fun thing for you to do, not sell it for the next 10 years? Would that be cool? That's another way to do it for those of us that love this game. So, like the average founder value, exit value or equity value, if they haven't sold, of founders I've interviewed on the Practical Founders podcast, that you wouldn't know about these vertical companies and they didn't get the press release and so forth. All over the world, by the way, this is a global phenomenon now. It's more than $50 million. So that's like $5 billion worth of founder equity value not going to investors.
Yeah.
Right? That goes right to founders and all that. The bigger thing isn't just the money odds. It's what kind of life do you want to have? What kind of business do you have? What kind of legacy do you want to have? And you can choose to play the VC funding game. I have consciously, and I've won that game. And but if I could do it over, the SaaS business is so beautiful right now. The valuations are so good, even at the
still,
right?
Yeah.
Like SaaS is still the only business where it's multiples of revenue, not multiples of profit when you sell your company. Still, all over the world. So, like the best way to make $30 million and buy the biggest house on the hill is to go create a vertical company, SaaS company, B2B SaaS company, to solve a niche, to do amazing, you've changed my life solutions with efficiency and frugality and not wastefulness. So part of frugality is you don't have to raise $5 million to run the experiments and wash it through to figure out what works. How about we do it slowly and deliberately and find the right thing and, the old-fashioned way maybe, something like that. And it's just awesome. Then you can create the culture you want and serve the customers you want and create the business you want and exit when you want or not. Mm-hmm. Some founders get to 5 million and say, I got 40 employees. This isn't as much fun. I'm a creator.
I actually just met one recently. In fact, I met him at, I think you were at the event. It was at Nathan Latka's event.
Yeah.
he moved to Utah randomly.
Oh, right.
Saw me at some random event. He goes, "Hey, Chad, how are you?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. You have to remind me." He tells me his name, and he's like, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you, I just sold my company a few months ago and decided to move to Utah." And I was like, "What company?" And he's like, "Yeah, I was in, he's like, I sold for single digit millions, and he's like, but I own the whole thing. It was fantastic." And I was like, "Great for you, dude."
And you can, that's a flipper.
Yes.
Like get it to $1 million, sell it for $5 and do it again.
Yeah.
Like I know people who fund their next business by creating a business and selling it because there's a very active market for these little software companies that are waiting for you to get from 0 to 1 million. That's the hard part, people. You can iterate from there. Normal people can iterate from there. Abnormal people can get it there.
Totally.
And just all the variations. So I call them practical founders because it's reasonably crazy.
Yeah.
Practical founders, right?
Unreasonably reasonable.
Yeah.
That's what I call it.
Right. Like, and there's leverage inside the business. Funding doesn't give you leverage. It just gives you fuel to go faster and get to your goal faster. It doesn't give you leverage like it used to. There's so much leverage in product and your go-to-market and your culture and all that kind of stuff. But there's a religion about bootstrappers. This is the way I did it. You should do it this way. And there's a place for that, like a developer creating something and getting it going. And there's a religion about VC funding. Everybody should do it, and you raise as much as you can, and you're not cool unless, like, you can go to Tech Connect here in Utah, and the big conference, 25,000 people, and kind of the message 2 years ago is you're not cool unless you're going for billions.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's two religions on the end. There's actually dozens of ways to grow and reap the rewards of creating a valuable SaaS business that serves customers and employees and so forth that are all different. Like, flip it.
Yeah.
Do it again. Do it again.
Right.
Oh, I want to run this for 20 years. Oh, I want to grow it fast. I want to grow it slow. I want to bootstrap it to 5 million and then raise some funding.
Right.
I want to get out early. I can 2 bites exit, sell it to private equity, growth equity. By the way,
some secondary,
VC funding is less common now on the front end, because it's moved to AI, bigger bets for B2B SaaS. And it's strategic exits, the big getting acquired by Microsoft and going public. Almost no software companies are going public these days.
Oh, yeah.
That was used to be the path, VC and then public.
Yeah.
So where do they go? I don't know.
Well, we're waiting to see, right? Anybody who's in the Series B plus range.
Ooh, it's painful.
I mean, it is painful, right? Because, in fact, I know multiple founders and some of our own customers who are like, we raised, fortunately, a sizable Series B, and their entire future plan now is to run a profitable business, and they're doing it.
Yeah.
Like, they're getting to that point. At least those that are wise.
And it's kind of a hobbled VC company. It's like
for sure.
It's like somebody who's eaten too much all over their life, and they say, "I'm going on a diet." It's hard to change the DNA their habits at the deepest level.
Yeah. So for people to understand, it's like, all right, let's suppose a company's doing 20 million in revenue.
Yeah.
Now that company who's VC backed now has, let's say, 300 employees, would be probably pretty accurate for that stage in 2021.
Uh-huh.
Now that same company needs to reduce headcount to about 150 people. And so and
their growth rates come down.
Yeah, their growth rate has come down. And let's suppose at that very moment they have the same amount of revenue, the same customers, the same support tickets, all of the things they were used to.
Yeah,
like that's
right.
What's
the
different.
Perks, the salaries,
it's
and
gone. That's all gone.
There's I don't know how many people you know in Silicon Valley. The mood is pretty glum there. Kind of this contraction
there's
is happening.
Multiple funds that have gone out of business and shut down, and
that's another thing that people don't think is they think all the venture funding is right and true, but half of the venture funds, like most of the new ones, are not going to be able to raise again.
Right, exactly.
And there's practical versions of funders like Greg Scoresby, Phoenix Ventures, and others that are funding capital efficient founders.
Debt funds,
and
as well.
Debt is another way to do it if you use it wisely. All of this you got to just use really wisely, right?
They should have done that from the freaking beginning.
Well, everybody says this is what you do, and all the cool kids are doing it, and it's hard to resist.
It's funny. Okay,
it's hard to resist.
At Jump, we raised $10 million, and one of your old associates, Hal Halliday, was on my team, and I remember I was talking to him about right before we were receiving our Series A wire, and he was like, "We need to make sure that we keep our burn in the right place," and I'm like, of course we will. Like, we'll be diligent for sure. He said, everyone says that. Yeah. And he was serious. He wasn't joking. He was serious. Everyone says that.
It was a lesson we
everyone
learned.
goes over. Yeah, you guys learned that together, I'm sure. And sure enough, 6 months later, that burn number. All right, yeah, but it's a drug, it's literally a drug because you're like, oh yeah, I mean, there's more growth opportunity. Why wouldn't we sponsor that event
it's expensive
for $50,000?
capital. You just sold a piece of your company. It's very expensive.
Yes.
Yeah, and so why let it sit in the bank? We got to use it. And there's a little bit of a cycle that says you've sold them on the money. They give you the money. So now I know what I'm doing, and it's going to work. Yeah, and it doesn't always work. Yeah. That whole cycle that entrepreneurs go through and all that stuff. But Clay would have said, quoting him here on this, not out of school, that, I wish I would have put 50% of our funding in a lockbox. Yes. All that kind of stuff. But it's really expensive. Why would you raise it if you don't need to do that and so forth? So there's all kinds of ways to create companies. And by the way, I'm not advocating everybody needs to be in B2B software. Sure. Everybody needs to be a practical founder. Yep. But it's just this large underserved market of seriously awesome people who are solving problems in the world and all over the world. In India, there's just as many software founders in India as there are here in the States and Europe and the rest, where Israel is, been on the funding drugs for a while. Mm-hmm. But most places around the world, funding this, you raise venture funding, never really made it there, even London, which got it, not so much. So, you get outside of Silicon Valley and New York and some of the big coastal cities here, and venture funding is less prevalent.
Yeah, Utah's kind of it's interesting. Like it's got its own ecosystem where 8 years ago, there was like probably 8 funds you could go pitch, and today there's probably 35 or more. Right. And it's changed. And some founders here have won really big. Yeah, and individual family offices have been fantastic.
Right, and then that cycle continues. Mm-hmm. And what's special about Utah is you're not 10 times smarter than any other ecosystem or whatever. And I was in Phoenix for 23 years. And people in Phoenix say, "What's going on in Utah that we're not doing here?" I said, "What's the rocks and it's the air and it's the grass." The multiplier here is those that win big, create a family office, and invest their time and their treasures in the next generation more than any other ecosystem in the world.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
It's a force multiplier here that you can literally see with the previous founders dedicating massive amounts of time and energy to the next generation. That's what Silicon Valley is a one big hive and everybody helping each other and networks that do this. That's what ecosystem is. And not every metro area gets that, but it's a super powerful thing. So, and it's changed the community here. Mm-hmm. Where we are here in Orem, which is just down the road here, started WordPerfect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And which you could still go over. Like, the old buildings are still there being, leased out by other startups. And the Novell campus, same thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What would you like to see as the outcome for, clients, customers, and practical founders for you? Like, as you kind of build this thing in this community, what do you really want to see for them?
Well, I had to detox myself from this everything needs to scale crazy. That's what the old guard does.
That is a little bit contrary to how you've approached things in the past, right?
Yes, right. So, and it's not a lifestyle business, but I work with 40 founders deep in their business, in my peer groups and one-on-one. And so I'm not going to work with 400 personally. For those 40 that I'm not trying to scale, I'm helping them scale and get through the really hard stuff that they need to get through and sort through these and find leverage deep in their business that helps them grow without funding. But they all have a vision of what they're trying to create in the world. I want to change my industry or my neck of the universe, put a dent in the universe. And you got to grow a sizable company to do that. Like, you don't change a universe with 3 customers, you change it with 3,000. And they each have a version, it is different, about what they want out of their end game. Some people have a number. I want to get to this number. And when they hit that number, I'll take the number and I'll do my thing. And, you can talk, we work on those kind of conversations, and they can have reasonable people can have different end games. I want to run this forever. I want to go fast. I want to go slow. I want to do it my way. I want to bring in other people. So they get to choose their adventure. But I want to help them in 3 or 5 or 10 years to say, oh my gosh, I achieved something amazing for my community, for my employees, for my family, for myself. And I had a life and a family and a health at the same time.
Right.
And I got to the other side and I'm not a disaster.
Right.
And I'm really proud of that. And, you know, thank my team and thank my customers and thank my people and Greg and those practical founders. Thanks. That's how I keep score. I'm scaling my message about practical founders.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
what I am.
You have
scaling.
a lot of followers on LinkedIn now.
It's a big. That's where my tribe is right now.
Up.
Yeah, and I'm expanding. So I was a contrarian when everybody was taking the funding drugs, and you should get funding as free and easy.
That's interesting because you started blowing up about this when it was.
I said, hey, I was waving my hands to serious founders out there, and not just in a histrionic kind of Twitter short way. I was like going deep on this. No, like you should see this and talk about this. So interestingly, I'm kind of pushing against the VC, everybody does VC proposition. But I did VC and I invest in companies. There's a place for it. It's just not for everybody. I'm just explaining it. Mm-hmm. So the only people who have ever argued with me about it are not VCs.
Have you had that? Have you had...
I'm not that kind of guy. I will be contrarian and find my way, but I'm not going to make stuff up that is silly.
Well, no, but have you had any resistance in messaging from people? Like, have you received messages from people saying like, no, I think you're wrong?
No.
Really?
Because it's actually true.
Yeah. But not as many people are talking about it.
Right.
In the way that you are, as bluntly as you're saying. You're saying, guys, really take a step back and consider whether you need money or not.
And let's look at the facts. Mm-hmm. Let's look at what happens and what's happening out there and so forth. So whenever I make a post and reveal something that's somebody would perceive as negative about VC funding, it's like, it's just the warning label.
Yeah.
Before you do this, you should consider this. This is how the game works. It's always worked that way. It's no surprise. It's in their legal document. Like I'm not lying here, but nobody else is explaining this. That's what I'm kind of doing. I'm doing this truth arbitrage game. That VCs don't have a vested interest in saying, you should probably stay off the funding drugs and go long.
No,
like McDonald's doesn't say eat more vegetables and drink more water, and you probably shouldn't eat any of this stuff, right? It's not in their best interest.
The CEO says, I'll eat it every meal.
And so, by the way, when I have a post like that, VCs reach out to me and say, oh, you know what you're talking about there.
Right.
So here's the reason nobody's talking about it. Almost nobody is looking at all the dimensions of it. A founder can go do their world and play their game, but they don't see all the other ways that are doing it. Only a crazy person like me has been looking at all the ways that founders have been doing this for 10, then 20 years. Yeah. And I'm not selling anything. I'm not selling funding. So there's an industrial complex around funding.
Yeah.
Every lawyer who makes money when you get funding and recruiter and ecosystem and incubator and all this stuff and the media because of the clicks, it's really easy to click on Podium raises $100 million Series A.
Right.
It's really hard to click on Chad Ingram takes 3.5 years to get to $1 million ARR and finally discovered that 40% of his customers are really good ones and decided to add a little service layer in there to make them happy. And, and finally got to profitability. Like
it buys less swag.
Yeah. And it's not as sexy and all that. So I'm happy to be not as sexy because that's where actually the truth is. So there's industrial complexes, the university industrial complex, now the pharmaceutical industrial complex, the political industrial complex we can see playing out in front of us. It's on and on.
Here's this funny thing. I'll share.
And I'm kind of David versus Goliath, kind of revealing the game.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful. I think people are engaging it because it's true, right, for a lot of people. So I met with a VC. And, and Distro has been largely bootstrapped. I've funded Distro and we have met with VCs. And when the market was still hot, we had attention from VCs and still do. And I met with one and conversations were going really, really well. And it didn't seem like it was quite a fit or if that it was going to work out. And this VC, she was the most honest I've ever seen. And she said, I don't know if you should take money. Now I'm a repeat founder. I've taken VC funding. I know what it means. Right. Mm-hmm. And she said, I don't know if it's a good fit for you. And I said, why? And she said, because with or without us, you will succeed. And I was just like a light bulb moment.
Yes.
They need you to need them.
Yes.
Right? Like, because they know once you start feeding the beast all this cash, you're going to need more cash. And that's the only way they have a positive outcome.
Right.
Right? Going huge and spending a lot of money to get there.
Right.
So,
and betting it all, and most of them won't work, but the big ones, a few will. This is the blockbuster game.
Right, and there are founders that can figure it out without cash.
It's actually most founders. You can get up in business, you can grow it and exit, and that's the story of practical founders in the modern game. Is most B2B SaaS founders should not take VC funding. Like, first of all, you ask a founder, I got this idea and I've got it going. I got some customers. I got some revenue. Got a little team, whatever that early thing is. I'm thinking about funding. I've had thousands of these conversations. Yeah. And I say, well, let me just ask you a couple of questions here. It's not evil. It's no sleight of hand here. If somebody offered you $30 million for your business right now, would you take it cash? And 70% of them say, heck yeah. I said, well, then never raise funding, because you're going to raise funding, whatever, $2 million on 10. Mm-hmm. And nobody's going to, a professional investor with lawyers and preferences and all that, is going to let you sell it for $30 million.
Correct.
As a good outcome. You might force them to.
And it is ultimately the VC's decision.
Right. $30 million is a bad sale for them, even when you start at that number, and you start adding more on top of that. So there's one. Okay, that moves you out. And then, do you really understand how the VC game works and what the stages are and the odds of the stages? And then people come out and, but VCs follow me around because 10% of them say, oh, I know that. I understand that. And no, I wouldn't take the money, and I want to bet. I want to bet the money because I think there's a big opportunity here. And from eyes open, from my founder side, I think I can do better. And I want to choose the big game, the fast and... it's a crazy fast game. It's crazy.
Yep.
Right. So, sign up for not having a life. And at least half of the VC-funded founders I know lost their families and marriages in the game, mental health. And the ones who've won the game, they're not much happier, I would say. Mm-hmm. So, I'm for the prize. I'm for changing the world with software. I think it's an awesome game. The SaaS business model is the best business model in the world ever. And there's all kinds of ways to do it. So that's really kind of what I'm waving my hands about. It's not don't take funding. It's choose your adventure.
In closing then, as we wrap this episode up, if you're talking to, on the same note, if you're talking to a founder who's, maybe got some revenue and there could be an option to go, get VC backed or something, or continue to bootstrap. Yeah. Like what would you tell them?
Well, the general rule here, first of all, it depends. So then I'd say, what do you want out of life? What are you trying to do with this? What's your market? Who are you? What is your background, right? Mm-hmm. Should you bet? There's all kinds of it depends question. But one of the general things I could say is it's always better to procrastinate funding. Because if you can get to $100,000 with no outside funding and your time and your energy and customer revenues and so forth, we know you can get to 200,000. Mm-hmm. We know you can get to $1 million. If you get to $1 million ARR in a software business these days, B2B software business, you have funders and acquirers and debt guys every day reaching out to you on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. You do.
You're already the prize. Mm-hmm. So I would say take it as far as you can to decide if I want to take it for the right reasons that isn't too risky, that won't break what I've created. And there's places for that. And maintain your optionality as long as possible.
Yeah.
But at some point you can keep procrastinating, you get to $5 million and like the flywheel is moving already.
Yeah, but here's part of the problem. I think founders, they're only viewing the media and social media around these large exits, and they don't know and think about that a company doing just a few million in revenue can get acquired. So they think that if I don't get to 20 million in revenue, there's not going to be an outcome for me. Yeah. And that's not true.
Yeah. So that's the difference between the dreamers, they saying someday I'll create something and just getting on the field. Every founder who's gotten to $1 million in software revenues is getting the requests, and they know they're valuable already. Oh, that's interesting. Sometimes it's flattering. Sometimes they take the bait, but mostly they know, oh my gosh, it's valuable to somebody. Maybe I ought to, right? Which, by the way, that didn't exist 10 or 20 years ago. Get to $1 million. It was 10 million to 100 million. If you raise VC funding, 100 million to go public was like what you did.
Yeah, exactly.
But now you get to $1 million and you go to acquire.com or whatever. It's really interesting. So just revealing that if you can get to $1 million without any outside funding, you're already valuable and you can improve your flywheel. There's leverage inside your business. Stop selling to your crappy customers. Stop spending on wasteful things. Solve your real problem in there. Focus in, right? Get better distribution. Improve your CAC to LTV ratios, like all that normal stuff that smart SaaS founders ought to be thinking about. There's great leverage in there. And every founder who has $1 million to $10 million software business knows it's valuable.
Yeah.
They know what it's worth.
So looking back, when you were early in your career, or even younger than that, do you feel like you are at where you wanted to be? And do you feel happy doing what you're doing now?
Well, this is kind of what I'm choosing to do is whatever turns me on the most. This is what I like to do.
Yeah.
If anybody's watching and they're not in the game yet, you realize if you get in the game and you get good at this game and you do it for a long time and you survive the challenges and the scars and you create something valuable, it's really hard to stop doing this magical thing.
Yeah.
At full speed.
Yeah.
It's really hard. Like, the people who gritted it out for 10 years and sell the business, and then day 2, there's somebody on my podcast 2 weeks ago, day 2, the money's in the bank and it's all quiet. It's not as fun as it seems to be, for people who do this. So I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't trying to make a ton of money. I was just trying to make a dent in the universe, provide for my family, because the misfits, we have to go off and create our own adventures. So I had to create my adventure, and I've been successful, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I'm still learning. I'm still bumping into walls and waking up in the morning working on my head game and figuring out new things and learning new stuff. And I don't know. Growth is actually kind of painful if you do it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're kind of weird like that. And so it's not I'm better or worse than anybody else. I'm just abnormal, and it's not stuff normal people do.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So where can people reach you if they've got questions or if they want to listen to your podcast?
Yeah.
Where do they hear that?
They go to practicalfounders.com to find the podcast and the peer groups and everything else. And all my LinkedIn posts are up there, like 400 from the last few years. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I post on LinkedIn a few times a week and have a really big discussion that goes on. And they can DM me there, or Greg at Practical Founders, or however they want to reach me. I mentor a lot. So if people want to reach out and have a question, including, should I raise some funding? I will have a practical discussion. Let's have a practical discussion. And the answer isn't, hell no, it always is, it depends, but probably not.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thanks for coming on the show and sharing.
Great to see you, man.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks.
Cool. Thank you for listening to today's episode of No Instructions. Feel free to leave us a rating or review wherever you listen to podcasts, and subscribe so we can continue producing these podcasts. Today's episode was brought to you by Distro. Distro is a platform to help startups find, hire, and pay employees in over 200 countries. It's free to use. Go to distro.io to set up your free account today.